Good evening, Jennifer. I will
Hey,
put
Sandy.
our names up. It is Jennifer Hynes and Sandy Schoelles. Of course, nothing comes up the way I want it to. From Environmental Coffee House. And welcome, everybody. It is really nice to see you all. Whoever's joining us, I have no clue. But we have a good night tonight. And I just want to say a quick happy birthday to Jennifer because her birthday was yesterday. And my birthday is next Wednesday. So next Friday night, we're going to have a birthday party. We're going to have a virtual birthday party.
Yay.
So, yeah. So seriously, we'll have a little cupcake or some shit. We'll light a candle. We'll just have you all with us. Hi, Trish Kaiser. I'll add you to the broadcast since I think you're the first one with us. I have not a clue who's with us.
Hey, Trish.
I can't even tell. It doesn't matter. I'm going to set up everything. But we've got a really good video tonight. And, well, I always say that because I make the really good videos. But
You do.
But Jennifer,
your videos have gotten so good. My God, this one is so good, you guys. It brought tears to my eyes. It's so profound and cute all at the same time.
Yeah, it's to make us feel not bad, and we're not going to use the C word tonight. Okay, Ed's with us, and good, this is great. Let's see who might be with us on Facebook because I don't have a clue what it looks like. And then we'll get started with the video. We'll wait for people to join, and I'm going to pin this on top, which is good. So I did my housework already. And then you guys that joined, I don't even know who's with us from on Facebook, but happy birthday, Jen. Tonight's good.
Oh, thank you.
And I really wanted to wait a few minutes until we know how many people joined. And how's the audio? We'll do an audio test. Hi, Kim. But I'm really excited to start the video. I kind of am. So I guess we're ready, right? We're ready. We've got people are joining. Okay, then I'm going to start the video. I hope everybody enjoys it. Sit back just like we do. And here we go.
So here I am standing on top of the Greenland ice sheet. And this is the second largest ice sheet on Earth. It's 4,000 kilometers long, 2,000 kilometers wide, and 2.5 kilometers thick. If all of the ice on the Greenland ice sheet melted, then sea level would rise by 7 meters, and most of the Earth's coastal cities would be flooded. And that looks like it's happening because if we look at the surface of the ice here, we can see that it's melting. In the past, you wouldn't get any melt of the Greenland ice sheet, even in summer. But now the whole ice sheet is melting. It's covered with these rivers of melt water which are running out to sea. And we can also see that the ice is black. What's happened is as the ice sheet's melted and the level has sunk, all the dirt that was in the ice over the last decades or even centuries has now gathered at the top because the ice itself has gone. So the ice gets blacker and blacker. And as it gets blacker, it reflects less solar radiation, absorbs more. So its albedo goes down, and that means it melts even faster. So the dirtier the ice, the faster it's melting. We're seeing a kind of dying of the Greenland ice sheet, and we see that all round this part of the edge of the sheet.
Take me anywhere that you want. I don't even care if we come back again. And as long as the stars are shining above us, then I just wanna be where you are. I don't close my eyes, then I might miss a moment of you. And as long as the sun shines upon us, and I just wanna be where you are. 'Cause with you I feel no fear, and when you hold me, all my wounds are healed. When I'm with you, I feel safe. There is no pretending, no need to escape. And I know I just wanna be where you are. I know everything has an end, and I know that we are not getting any younger. But as long as there is time, I will walk beside you. 'Cause I just wanna be where you are. 'Cause with you I feel no fear, and when you hold me, all my wounds are healed. When I'm with you, I feel safe. There is no pretending, no need to escape. Then I know I just wanna be where you are. 'Cause with you I feel no fear, and when you hold me, all my wounds are healed. When I'm with you, I feel safe. There is no pretending, no need to escape. And I know I just wanna be where you are.
I hope everybody liked it. I liked it. It made me happy to create it. I mean, I watched the polar bears and all the wildlife, and it felt good. And I didn't cry. And I know a lot of you were out there saying, feeling emotional. Hi, Wendy. Wendy Sue Hawkins is with us. That is my sister from another mother, my cousin. Ah, it's great. So, welcome everybody. Welcome tonight. We've got some interesting things. And again, it was Jen's birthday yesterday. Happy birthday, Jen. It's my birthday Wednesday. And it's Amy Lynn's birthday also. Amy Lynn, everybody knows who Amy Lynn is if you follow our climate change channels. And Amy Lynn's birthday was yesterday too. So I'm giving Amy a shout out also. You know, she's been going through a little bit of a rough time. And if she wanted to join our birthday next week, that would be great. And I'm drinking some orange juice, keeping up with the vitamin C. So, Jen, hello. I can't hear you. Okay. Let me see what's going on. Why can't I hear
No,
Jen?
it's me. It's not
Okay.
you. I muted myself so I wouldn't, be noisy.
Yeah, and it's supposed to mute automatically. So we've got a lot of, we got a really good family here. And
Yeah.
I'm glad. So tonight, guys, we have a lot of good stuff, actually. We have quite a bit to go over. And I'm going to show you the screen. Let me just move it over so I can see what we're doing and everybody can see what we are reading. All right, we're going to
Mm-hmm.
start
Yeah.
with.
Can we give a 30,000-foot overview of the 5 articles or 6 articles we're going to cover today?
Absolutely, you go for it.
Okay. We're going to be covering 6 articles today. We're going to cover back on the Polar Stern and the Mosaic mission. A year-long expedition spotlights nightlife in the Arctic winter. So Sandy's going to tell us about that. And then methane emissions hit a new record and scientists can't say why. So it's like that last part that I never understand. Why do they say they can't say why? Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Tropical oceans headed for collapse within the next 10 years, major study reveals. And that's from Science Alert. And we're going to be going back up to the Arctic. Melting Arctic sea ice may be altering winds, weather at equator.
Yeah.
So as we know, everything's connected. Then Sandy's going to talk with us about shelf sediments. Freshwater runoff from rivers brings more carbon and nutrients to the North Pole.
Oh, we know that's right
And then
up
we're
my
going
alley.
to... And then we're going to finish up with something from scuba diver life. 5 marine species threatened by bipolar climate change.
Yeah, and
So
that's
that's
what we're going to
quite a
end with.
lineup.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
quite the lineup, but that's what we're going to end up with, and I'm going to leave this alone. Everything looks like it's running well on the pages, and as this one-woman technical show, I want to start off with the Polar Stern, the Mosaic Project, because I love it. You know, I really love this project. So tonight, it was from Science News, and you guys can see the picture. If you can see the picture, I'll move it over a little bit. I just want to make sure the screen looks good on my end so I can tell for you, since we are such novices. So you know that we already did this about the Polar Stern and how they are, this is the research vessel that's in the Arctic. And they had their challenges. You know, they couldn't have the fly-ins. They were, I don't know if they still can get the fly-ins, but they're doing a lot of good stuff. And it's a year long. We did our piece, so we're kind of following up a bit. And I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's very long. So the beginning, she's talking about the crack that they saw. It was a river crack that opened a few days ago, exposing the Arctic below. And this is them. And that's Alfred Wegener Institute biologist Allison Fong and chemical oceanographer Robert Rember of the University of Alaska Fairbanks. And they were sampling water and ice to study the organisms within from a crack in the ice. That was on October 10th. And so it's really about the organisms down there, they're saying they manage to thrive. They're finding out. Fang is a biologist, again, I told you, and she says even phytoplankton, which is a type of algae that relies on sunlight to fuel photosynthesis, it's far from dormant in the dark, which is really cool. It's just so neat how everything lives and everything is interrelated. So they wanted to see the stored deposits, if they worked, the stored deposits of fat or feed on small particles in the winter waters. So finding out for sure is important, given that these algae form the foundation of the Arctic food web. Their massive springtime blooms provide a buffet for other critters, particularly zooplankton, tiny sea animals that are munched on by the larger squid and fish, which are dinner for the seals that are eaten by whales and polar bears. Any change to that algae would surely rock the food web, and the change is brewing, which is what they are there looking at. Rising the temperatures rising in the Arctic have caused the ice to melt and thin. So as a result, those algae blooms are growing earlier in the season and farther north. That's what they're finding. Blooms have even been seen under the ice itself. So to better predict these changes and how they might affect the food web, these scientists first have to grasp how the algae and the other microscopic organisms survive polar night and how they respond to the lowest level of light. So they say much of the Arctic remains a mystery, but they're making leaps and bounds with this research. They say there's 1,000 species of microalgae in the frigid waters, and none have been studied close to the North Pole. And they say there's literally no data about the animals and their activities during the polar night from the central Arctic. That's what Fang says. I hear people down in my basement. That's because I guess my husband must be only with his brother because he 50% quarantines with him. Sorry, I know I got a little. All right. So every winter, the central Arctic becomes a fortress of sea ice too thick for ships to penetrate. So that is really why the polar stern is there. And that's the mosaic. So I'm going to go down and I'm going to show you, we'll go back a little bit where, like what we were, when we first went over this. And it was headed north from Tromsø, Norway, to the North Pole. So it's been in there. See how it says on there, September 2019. And right now, you see the little blue there? It's almost over. But I don't know if they're going to have to extend it because of what's happened with this virus that's gone worldwide already. I said that they couldn't get the air provisions, or change the I think it was changed certain scientists. So I really don't know. We'll see if they say in this article, if they talk about changing the scientists, because they were supposed to change out a lot. So these guys, I'm going to keep going down. See the polar bears? Oh, it's polar bear night. And they saw they were doing research, and they said the work was often waylaid by the challenging environment and a furry visitor or two. 6 days after the scientists began their work, a curious polar bear and her cub ambled into camp, knocking down power lines and munching on instruments. With each subsequent visit, the ship's horn and radio announcements sent scientists back to the ship, halting all work on the ice. But the furry visitors weren't the only obstacle. Ships that were sent to the ice floe every few months were often delayed by the weather, and the air missions were grounded in March to keep the coronavirus, okay, see, I jumped the gun, off the ship. And the ice didn't always cooperate either. A few days after we reached our new home, she said, a storm rocked the floe, opening several cracks beyond the ship's bow. So until then, the floe had felt so stable, even continent-like, and that it was easy to forget that it was just a thin veneer of ice, Jen, and it could be tossed about by the wind. So unfortunately for Fang, the location beyond the ship's bow the spot she had been eyeing for her research station, it was unattainable. So see, everything really did change. But that's what I was really wanted to hook into, just to kind of piggyback off of what, our live stream that we had done, our show on this whole mosaic, which I've been following. So a lot of scientists set up camp within a few hundred meters of the ship, but she needed to work far from the lights to study the Arctic's natural light. That's got to be a little creepy, wouldn't you think? Going way out, because that's where she could see the tiniest critters. And so once that storm dashed her initial plan, it took a few weeks to find a new location, which was more than a kilometer from the ship's starboard side. I would be a little nervous, but you know what? These people are, man, they're tough. They're heroes. So she talks about how she went with 10 scientists and 2 polar bear guards. So it's not like she was out there by herself, but they piled into 4 snowmobiles and 6 wood sleds. And once a week, they cruised along the bumpy road past small mountains of snow and ice, dubbed the fortress, to the other edge of the ice floe. Can you see it in your mind's eye? Just how cool that must be. And so then they collected their stuff. And this is the original logistics, where they had everything set up that was around the polar stern. See how you see logistics. And then there was the runway that obviously was a problem. So I'm going to go through this dark secrets one. I'm not going to go through this. It's a little more background, guys. Oh, look at that person. We'll put the link up because it's a really long article and we have a lot we want to get over. We really want to go over a lot of things. So this really tells you exactly what they specifically did with hooking electrodes up to the zooplankton to measure how the creatures responded to flashes of light. So you really get the idea, and they don't know how the plankton stay alive. The phytoplankton stay alive. And this is really going to be so fascinating, Jen. I honestly can't wait until all of the research is in. And I mean, it's going to be like, oh my God, I didn't take our names down. I thought I did. Our stupid names have been up the whole time. This is silly. Anyway, look at that picture. Can you see that? Where the guy has the light on his head and he's
that's beautiful.
That's pretty wild. Can everybody see that out there?
So mysterious.
Yeah. I mean, this would be something in a different life that I would love to do. Just, if I had the chance to know any different in my life, that this would have been something that would have been fascinating. I would have loved to do this. So they said the spring awakening, and they talk about the different species of food plankton, zooplankton. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I'm showing you the pictures. This is Nicole Hildebrandt, and she's looking at the collected zooplankton from under the ice floe. And I love it. Everybody looks so young, and it's just so cool. It is, because they're like, it's a whole interesting. Everything's always fresh and new for them. These scientists. It's great. Okay, again, we're not going to go into the history. We're just looking at what they've seen and what the stuff looks like. Okay. She has some
I have
worries.
a couple of comments about this. It's just like amazing how much zooplankton and phytoplankton and all kinds of plankton. This area is rich in plankton, and it loves to live under the ice, and it is like 1,000,000 times fainter light in the Arctic during the winter. And this stuff thrives, and you just pull away the ice, and like all this green water gushes up, and it's green because it's full of life. And when you think about it, when the whales and stuff go to feed, some whales eat is plankton, right? That's all they eat. And they always go north up to the Arctic area to do their feeding. And that same level of food is not available in the tropical waters. So the North
Wow.
is full of life.
Wow. That's cool. Thanks, Jen. See, that's the stuff that you fill in my blanks. That's why we complement each other so well. But I'm going to go through this, and it's almost over. Okay, so you get the drift, everybody. The article tells you about where they're at, and this is the just one of the experiments. So I'm going to go to the next one, and Jen, I hope everybody was happy with that. Was finding
Yeah.
the all right. So this is
Yeah.
Bloomberg Green, and this is take it away.
Sure. Yeah. So as Sandy said, this is out of Bloomberg, and this article is about methane. Methane's going up, but scientists can't say why. Okay. Apparently, it's hit a new record. Airborne methane levels rose markedly last year, according to a preliminary estimate published today by the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. The results show a dramatic leap in concentration of the levels of the second most powerful greenhouse gas, which is emitted from both industrial and natural sources. So in that chart, it shows how methane's going up from 1984 when they started keeping some of these records till present day. Last year's jump in methane is one of the biggest we've seen over the past 20 years, said Rob Jackson, professor of Earth System Science at Stanford University and chair of the Global Carbon Project. It is too early to say why, but increases from both agricultural and natural gas use are likely. I would assume so, right? Natural gas consumption surged more than 2% last year. Methane levels have accelerated twice in the last 15 years. First in 2007, and everybody who remembers Arctic sea ice extent, 2007 was the first real big contraction of Arctic sea ice extent, those of you guys that remember that. And again in 2014. Scientists have yet to pinpoint the exact cause or causes. Well, don't look too far. Virtually every contributor to the global methane problem may play a role, from the oil and gas industry to human agriculture to wetlands changing with the climate. Now, they're not really talking about Arctic methane anywhere here. They're just talking about methane in general. Methane is about 25 times more powerful, a heat-trapping gas, than its nearest competitor, carbon dioxide. 25 times more. We're not talking twice. We're not talking 3 times stronger. We're saying 25 times more. So when extrapolated over the course of a century, oil and gas producers have long been criticized for tolerating methane leaks at gas well sites, pipelines, and compressor stations. A 2018 study by the Environmental Defense Fund estimated that these leaks are equivalent to $2 billion in losses for the industry. Well, you'd think they'd be selfish enough to take a look at that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, at least appeal to people's greed and selfishness, but they're not even doing anything about it. The Environmental Defense Fund did not take into account the gas producers purposely burn at the well sites to keep even more crude flowing, a practice that enrages environmental activists. You all have seen that when you've passed some of these gas wells and oil wells, you just see like gas being burnt. You know, it's just awful. It goes like all the time.
Yeah, they flare it. And well, here I know they're not flaring it here where we have our dump. Actually, the dump creates the methane too. And I went on a tour of our dump this year, and it has a whole big generating station. And they're taking that and they're creating energy out of it. And it just goes back to the grid for our community. It's pretty cool because they're not flaring it and wasting it. I mean, it's still, but it's methane. It's what what comes out of the dump. It was really fascinating, Jennifer. You would have loved the trip. I mean, it was like so cool to see. So cool to see. Yeah. But I mean, this is methane, and they're not even talking about what's coming out of the melting. Like you
Yeah.
said, this is enough. There's going to be
Yeah.
an overload, right?
There certainly is. There
Well, I
really
guess we
is.
could look at the next one. I think we should handle this one tag team together. You know why?
Okay.
Because I think
Sure.
that you have an understanding maybe a little bit more than I might. Is the article up? All right, let me make sure it's up. Okay. Okay, I'm on the right screen. I got a little. My husband never comes home. He must. It's early. If they were doing tree work. You know, he and his
Mm.
brother. And it was cold and snowy. Did it snow in Colorado?
No, but we're going to get snow this Sunday. The front comes in here.
Oh yeah.
So, and then all next
Oh.
week it's going to be like snowy.
Oh, all next week. Nope,
Yeah.
we just got the little spring snow. You take the video when it's a lot of snow and then it melted, and then it'll be like 60. Then it'll go to 30. We have weather whiplash here. All right, so you want to start this one?
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is an article from a publication called Science Alert, and it's about the oceans. Tropical ocean headed for collapse within the next 10 years, major study reveals. Just out today.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Today.
That's April 10th.
This
Yeah,
week's
today,
news.
April 10th. This is today's news. Global warming will cause catastrophic biodiversity loss across the world if greenhouse gas emissions aren't curbed, with some ecosystems liable to collapse as soon as 2030, according to new research into where and when die-offs may occur. Earth has never in human history warmed so quickly or uniformly as it is currently, but a variety of factors affect temperatures in individual regions with significant seasonal and geographic variation. Scientists predict that at current levels of human-made carbon emissions, Earth is on course to heat up to 4 degrees Celsius by 2100. Wow. And we're only about almost 1 degree above pre-industrial right now. Well, depends who you talk to, right?
Yeah,
1 or
I was just
1.5.
going to say that depends on who you're talking to. Yeah, Sam Carana,
Depends
he's
on
going
who
to
you
say
talk
one
to.
thing. Paul might say another thing back with. Michael Mann might
Yeah.
say another thing. But it's somewhere that's not supposed to be.
Yeah.
Anyway, so instead of looking at global trends, researchers in Britain, did you read this already? No. Researchers in Britain, the
Nope.
United States,
That's it.
and South Africa looked at more than 150 years of climate data and cross-referenced that with the spread of more than 30,000 species of birds, mammals, and fish. They then divided the globe into 100 square kilometer, 39 square mile segments, and they modeled the temperature trends and effects that this would have on wildlife in a given area. And writing in the journal Nature, they concluded that under emissions, as usual, known as the RCP 8.5 scenario, up to 73% of the species will experience unprecedented warming with potentially disastrous effects for populations. Alex Pigot from the University of College London Centre for Biodiversity and Environment said that the model showed that animal populations were liable to collapse once they cross a temperature horizon. Being exposed to heat they're not evolved to handle. Go for it, Jed.
As we pass this threshold, we expect the risk of local extinction to increase substantially, Pigot told the AFP. It is not a slippery slope, but a series of cliff edges hitting different areas at different times. The models change dramatically according to each emissions pathway. For example, at 4 degrees C of warming, 15% of all animals could see extreme heat that would cause irreversible damage to regional ecosystems. But at 2 degrees warming, CAP aimed for in the Paris agreements, that figure dropped to 2% according to the models. Researchers predict that such unprecedented temperatures will begin before 2030. Well, that's within the next 10 years in tropical oceans. So within the next 10 years, the tropical oceans are going kaput, it sounds like. Recent phenomena such as mass bleaching of the Great Barrier Reef, and by the way, that mass bleaching of the Great Barrier Reef, that was one heating event. You just get a really hot wave of heat coming through and those corals just die. They just bleach out and die. So this was already occurring in some places, the team said, adding that higher latitudes would see similar events by 2050. So this, the tropics heats up, and it heats up first because it's hotter anyway, so there's less to go before it gets hot, and it just kills things. Coral reefs are... sorry, yeah?
No, nothing. It just kind of gives me the chills.
It is. It's sad. It's really, really, really sad. We're witnessing the destruction of our beautiful, beautiful Earth. It's really sad. Coral reefs occupy a tiny percentage of the oceans, but support as much as a quarter of all marine life. Earth has already heated to more than 1 degree C since the Industrial Revolution, and the planet warming greenhouse gas emissions from the burning of fossil fuels are climbing annually. Do you want to take care of the last 2 paragraphs? Sorry,
sure.
I kind of got carried away.
No, you didn't. The United States says humanity needs to slash emissions 7.6% annually by 2030 in order to limit warming to 1.5, the more ambitious aim of the Paris Accord. As we approach 2C of global warming, there is an alarming escalation in the risks of these abrupt biodiversity losses, providing strong evidence for the need to hold warming below. Well, don't we know this? I mean, it's not like we don't know this. And I don't know. I mean, it's good to read the stuff, but sometimes I feel like it's a little less. I think we're farther along, but I'm going to segue into this because I know this was the article you really wanted to get into. And here we go. Yeah. Manga Bay.
I mean, the Arctic is a fascinating place, and everything is connected. So this is from a publication called Manga Bay. Manga Bay, is that it? Manga Bay.
Awesome publication.
News and inspiration from nature's front line. Cool. It has a little gecko on it. Very cute. Yeah. Okay, so this one's about the Arctic, and this came out at the end of January. It's very apropos here. Melting Arctic sea ice may be altering winds, weather at equator, study says. So there are about 4 bullet points. We're going to go through these 4 bullet points because this kind of shows how everything's connected.
Yeah. They always
blow it up just a little bit.
Well, I really like their magazine. I mean, they're online.
Yeah. Scientists predominantly believe that the tropics have the largest influence on global weather, but new research suggests that climate change-driven Arctic heating and rapid melting of Arctic sea ice could impact places as far away as the equator. A new study published today found that accelerating ice melt in recent decades could be linked to the Central Pacific trade wind intensification, the emergence of El Nino events, and a weakening of the North Pacific Aleutian low circulation, a semi-permanent low-pressure system that drives post-tropical cyclones and generates strong storms. So, in our studies, we're learning about all these air pressure weather systems and ocean current systems and, the Arctic systems and the jet stream, and they all work together. And the melting Arctic is changing all of this. A 2019 study likewise revealed a close connection between winter Arctic ice concentration over the Greenland Barents Sea and the El Nino Southern Oscillation in the following winter. Another study out this month found that in prehistoric times, periods of major permafrost thawing were tied to an absence of Arctic summer sea ice, exactly where we are today. Next bullet. Other research has drawn connections between rising Arctic temperatures and changes in the jet stream, a fast-moving river of air that circulates the northern polar regions and the southern polar regions as well, right? It's got the southern jet stream. A slowing of the jet stream and its looping far to the south is thought to be stalling temperate weather patterns, worsening droughts, storms, and other extreme weather. Well, there's abrupt climate change in a nutshell right there.
In a nutshell,
right there.
You got it.
Yeah, and it all comes back to the Arctic. All of it.
Everything.
All of it comes back to the Arctic. So, Sandy, how about I read a couple of paragraphs and then I hand it over to you? Does that sound good for you?
Yeah, babe. It sounds great.
Okay, good. Melting Arctic sea ice has fundamentally and profoundly altered polar ecosystems in the recent decades, creating warmer temperatures on land and disrupting the behavior of marine mammals and ice obligate species. But now new research suggests that melting sea ice also is influencing weather systems as far away as the equatorial Pacific Ocean. And this just kind of reminds me of Paul Beckwith's study about the jet streams crossing over the equator. You can see it's going all the way down to the equator and beyond.
Was that last year?
I think that study that Paul did was a couple of years back.
A couple of years ago, and he's updating some things now. I just started catching his videos. Paul Beckwith, go to his videos.
Absolutely. Paul Beckwith is one of my great internet mentors, and I'm sure that most people on this show, watching this show, also watch Paul Beckwith. You have to, if you're not watching Paul Beckwith, you better start watching him. He's great.
Paul Beckwith. Yep.
Right. Patterns originating in those tropical waters include El Nino and La Nina, which shape the weather experienced on every continent, meaning if the new study is correct, which I'm sure it is, that Arctic sea ice loss could have global ramifications. At the end of the summer of 2019, Arctic sea ice extent was tied with 2007 and 2016 as the second lowest since satellite records began in 1979. Compared to the 1981 to 2010 average, ice extent has declined by a third, and volume has also dropped precipitously. A study published today in the Proceedings of National Academy of Sciences finds this accelerating sea ice melt could be linked to the intensification of the Central Pacific trade winds, the emergence of El Nino events, and a weakening of the North Pacific Aleutian low circulation. This is new. We haven't heard much about this before. A semi-permanent low-pressure system that drives post-tropical cyclones and generates strong storms.
Wow. Right. You're right.
Yeah. You want to take it from here, Sandy?
Yeah.
A bit?
Yeah, I really like Manga Bay. Their writing is really good.
They're awesome.
And their research. Using computer analysis of historical sea ice data, 2 researchers at the University of California, San Diego, identified which atmospheric phenomena seem to be changing alongside the retreat of the Arctic ice. Notably, they found that as the ice vanished, the Central Park trade winds intensified.
Wow.
So
that's going to just drive the hurricane and cyclone season, right?
And between that and the warmer water temperatures,
Oh,
Oh, I'm
yeah.
scared for people. Ugh.
Oh, yeah.
The scientists hypothesized that the melting ice triggers a series of events that could shoot cold air towards the equator via the upper atmosphere. Now that's pretty wild just to think about that. In the
Oh, no.
absence of sea ice, the warming ocean creates a rising column of air that travels vertically to the boundary of the troposphere and the stratosphere, where it then pushes south, flowing through the mid latitudes and onto the equator. I'm putting my hands like a weather person. It's like applying. I'm like this with it. It's like applying a candle to the bottom of the atmosphere. Well, here I've got the candle right here. Should we do
Good.
Should we do a? Let's just do a test right here. Okay. So it's like applying a candle to the bottom of the atmosphere. You set off convection that rises to high latitudes, and once it gets up there, it has no place to go. So it gradually then moves southward. That's what Charles Kennel says, one of the study's authors. And he's a former director at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography. And look at that picture. If you guys can see it, blue-footed boobies. Blue-footed boobies. Okay. I never heard of blue-footed boobies.
Oh,
Off the
blue-footed boobies are
Boobies?
awesome. They're the Galapagos, and their
They
feet are
don't
like
have
powder blue. They're
Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful
Do they
feet.
have another name, or they're just the boobies?
They're the boobies.
That's cute. See, I learned something today. I learned something every show we do. If new research identifying a potential influence between Arctic sea ice melt and tropical weather is confirmed by future studies, then Arctic tropical climate change connections could have extraordinary implications for tropical habitat, wildlife, and vegetation. Wow. All right, Jen, take it away.
I have no idea where you are.
Right after the blue picture, what I did was read the caption. So you
Oh,
got
okay.
the effect.
Okay, great. The effect was witnessed most strongly in models comparing high ice loss region north of the Siberian Arctic coast and the intertropical convergence zone in the Pacific, where the trade winds of the northern and southern hemispheres join. This is one of the first studies to find evidence that the melting Arctic sea ice could be influencing weather systems as far south as the tropics. Not
Wow.
so. Paul Beckwith figured this thing out 2.5 years ago. But if they want to say it's the first time it's been witnessed, that's fine.
Yeah, but that's
However,
not fair to him. Why don't we send them the video?
Not only that, but he got roasted for even putting out the thought that the jet streams could be crossing the equator. He was lambasted, publicly smeared for putting forth.
Well,
here it is.
Let's support our friend.
That's right.
Let's email the video to them.
Right. He was actually abused for saying this, and now they're saying the same thing a couple of years later.
Wow.
You know.
So he really is a pioneer.
Oh, yes.
He really needs to get more
recognition. The thing is about he does.
Brilliant.
And the thing is about Paul, he's a generalist in the big sense with a big G, and he synthesizes information, puts all the dots together, and thinks coherent thoughts, whether they're accepted or not, which I think is brilliant.
And already we're just seeing the evidence. 2 years later, he had it first.
There you
he
go.
had it right. Wow.
However, the current research, while it shows historical concurrence of Arctic and tropical changes, does not prove causation. Oh, they just always have to put a CYA in, don't they? Whether Arctic sea ice melt affects weather systems farther south has long been the subject of contentious debate in the scientific community. Oh, here we go. In 2012, Jennifer Francis, the grande dame of jet streams, know thy jet streams, read Jennifer Francis. In 2012, Jennifer Francis, a senior scientist at the Woods Hole Research Center in Massachusetts, USA, published a study that drew connections between the changes in the Arctic and the mid-latitude extreme weather. Ba-bang! Her work triggered off very large movement in the scientific literature, which people are still worrying about. You see, she saw it, she
Yes.
put it out there, and then
I
people went
remember this.
crazy.
I
They
remember
went
this.
crazy and
I
started
remember
going
this
like,
whole
rah,
thing.
rah, 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 rah.
Yeah.
That's what happens with
In the
controversial
science
thoughts.
of fear. Yeah.
Yeah. This has been very controversial, but the evidence is piling up on the Francis side. No fucking kidding, right? Researchers are increasingly certain, you betcha baby, that the extreme temperature difference between the Arctic and the temperate zone farther south is one of the primary factors that drives the jet stream, a fast-moving river of air that circulates the polar region in the northern hemisphere. But as the sea ice vanishes and the Arctic temperatures increase, which they are, the temperature difference between these regions is getting smaller, and hence the jet stream is all collapsing, getting all crazy, and basically losing its form. It's no longer a very strong little ruffle. It is a distended, chaotic mess. Yeah. Do you want to take it
No.
away any further?
No, go
How
ahead.
are we doing
More.
on?
One more.
You want me to? Okay, I'll just read a couple more articles. I'm looking at the time,
I know.
and checking our stuff out.
Mhm.
Okay, that means that there's less force driving jet stream winds from west to east, as we've just mentioned, right?
Yep.
Causing the weakened airflow to start wildly deviating from its typical polar path and looping deeply into the lower latitudes. Francis' theory proposes that the loopy, lower energy jet stream is altering historic weather patterns, causing major storms and droughts to stall in place. For example, this complex jet stream effect may have intensified the record rains and flooding brought by stalled Hurricane Harvey in 2017, also a low Arctic sea ice year, and Florence in 2018. Do you remember
I was going to say,
Hurricane
do you remember?
Harvey? Yeah, Hurricane Harvey, there was like
There was
52 inches
controversy.
of rain in a day or something crazy. I mean, Hurricane Harvey, wasn't that like over Houston?
Yes,
Right?
and the controversy was whether or not this was normal
Oh,
conditions, and people were saying, and of course, Jenna, at the time, I remember she was saying, and there were others, but I remember her voice saying, "This is not. This is from intensified warmth and then the stalling. Everything she's talking about here,
absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
So where are we? When
When
Kennel
Kennel
reviewed the research on possible mid latitude influences, he thought, gosh, if the effect is that big and it already gets to 45 degrees latitude, how come the atmospheric waves that carry all this energy don't get to the equator? Why should it just stop there? Now, Francis, boy, we should interview her, who served as a
that'd be great.
reviewer of the PNAS paper, notes that Cannell's study provides new and compelling evidence that rapid Arctic change is affecting weather patterns even into the tropics. Traditional meteorological wisdom has long considered the tropics to be the dominant player in controlling major weather patterns, but this and other new studies suggest it's time to also look at the north. There you go.
No kidding,
Yeah,
huh?
it's worth it to finish this article. Another
It is.
study.
This is such an
Yeah.
article.
Another study published last year in Climate Dynamics revealed a close connection between our winter Arctic ice concentration over the Greenland Barents Seas and the El Nino Southern Oscillation. And so, in the following winter, these results present yet more evidence for human-caused climate change affecting a major source of extreme weather, along with a silver lining that by knowing how much ice is lost in summer may help predict and sow the following winter, says Francis. Take it away, Jen.
Kennel notes that prior to 1999, most El Niños formed off the coast of Peru, well below the equator. They came at Christmas and they were given the name El Niño, little boy or Christ child, in Spanish by Peruvian fishermen because they thought the warming and change in fisheries was associated with Christmas, said Kennel. Now we're finding that many more El Niños are initiated in the Central Pacific. It's the first indication that some El Niños in the December-January period can be triggered by the arrival of Arctic air. Interesting, right? New research also shows that the loss of Arctic sea ice has dire implications on land, impacting the surrounding tundra, which serves as one of the largest reservoirs of stored carbon on the planet. Scientists believe that for every 1 degree Celsius, 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit, the rise in Earth's average temperature, thawing permafrost may release the equivalent of 4 to 6 years worth of coal, oil, and natural gas emissions. In a Nature study published earlier this month, researchers found that in prehistoric times, periods of major permafrost thawing were tied to the absence of summer Arctic sea ice. This discovery about the past behavior of permafrost suggests that the expected loss of Arctic sea ice in the future will accelerate thawing of the permafrost presently found across much of Siberia, says Gideon Henderson, one of the study's authors. This growing body of work also adds weight to a major emerging concern related to Earth's bioregional interconnectedness. Scientists worry that in the future, when one bioregion reaches a climate tipping point, a domino effect will occur, triggering tipping points in other faraway places. So this is like a whole series of dominoes. One falls and it just goes ka-chunk, 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 ka-chunk.
Yep.
While more research is needed, scientists point to potential cascading effects that could link rapid Arctic and Antarctic sea ice loss, ice loss, permafrost thaw, boreal forest fires, and the stalling of Atlantic Ocean circulation, coral reef die-offs, and the intensifying Amazon drought. Kennel stresses the newly identified link between the Arctic and the tropics merits further research. No kidding. But this work points the way.
In other words, we're kind of fucked.
Yeah, well, I mean, like we've been saying for years, Sandy, everything is connected. And one thing, it's like nothing is existing in isolation. And one ecosystem or bio area goes down, it just
and it
collapses
brings the other
on
ones
the
with
next
them.
one.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
So let's see. We've been an hour, I think, because we showed the video. Maybe we'll skip over this one, and we'll take the shelf sediments and freshwater runoff. And excuse me, of course, I have an itchy nose. We'll do that next time because I think we'll go through the little. Since some of you didn't see the video in the beginning, I'm not going to play it at the end of this unless the audience wants us to, but this is from it's called Diver. What the hell? Like I lost the Scuba Diver Life. It was interesting article, and did I just lose my article? Okay, here we go. So
5 marine species threatened by polar climate change. That one.
Yep, there we go, and it is just, it kind of like ends from the video that I created. Yeah. This came out of nowhere, and it is a recent the conservation part from. It's not a brand new one. That's right. This was the old one, but it was still relevant. So I just thought relevant. We would go over because of the effects of global warming, some of the animals that you saw in the beautiful video that we put together are going to be affected. So I'll read first the polar bear. And
Okay.
conservationists often depict polar bears as the poster species for climate change in the Arctic, and for good reason. In 2014, a study came out that polar bears in Northeast Alaska and Northwest Territories documented a 40% population loss, and that's what, 14, and now it's 2020.
Oh, it's so
So
scary.
they depend on the ice as a hunting ground and as a vital resting place, and the bears prey mainly on seals. So they were in 2008 they were put on the U.S. endangered species list as a threatened species.
Mm.
And next comes the walrus.
Walrus populations in the Arctic are also at risk due to imminent habitat loss. Walruses spend approximately half their life on the ice. Well, they won't if the ice is not there, will they?
No.
Which they use as a resting place and a breeding and pupping ground. So that's where they have their babies. Traditionally, female walruses and their calves spend the summer on the fringes of the Arctic sea ice. But in 2014, the drastic shrinking of the summer ice fields forced 35,000 walruses to haul out at Point Lay Beach in Alaska instead.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's amazing. You want to take the Greenland shark one?
Yeah, here's a different one. The Greenland shark. It's one of only 2 shark species that live in Arctic waters. Relatively little is known about this enigmatic species, thanks largely to its preference for deep water. However, we do know that the Greenland shark is a predator at the top of the complex Arctic food web. If the sea ice disappears, the algae that forms the basis of that food web will also disappear, causing a collapse. Again, everything is connected, causing a collapse that will affect all species, including the Greenland shark. And expansion of commercial fisheries is another reason. As the ice melts, the fishermen, fisher girls, fishermen, persons, I never know what's the perfect descriptor anymore. Greenland sharks have toxic flesh, so fisheries don't target them. But basically, because they live on the seafloor, they are susceptible to bycatch as a result of benthic trawling methods. They mature at a late age, and they have a slow rate of reproduction, making it unlikely that they could recover. See, it's the sad part.
Yeah, it's very sad. And now we're going to talk about the penguins, the emperor penguins. In 2014, a group of researchers published a study based on an emperor penguin colony at Terra Adélie in Antarctica. The study stated that by the end of the century, more than 2/3 of Antarctica's emperor penguin colonies will have declined at least 50% if climate change continues at its current rate. Climate change rate is going to escalate, I bet you.
Yeah.
It's not going to stay at its
Jen.
current.
Yeah. You want to flip a coin? Heads I win. Tails you win.
Yeah. Like most polar species, changes to the sea ice are triggering this decline, as we've been talking about. The ice provides crucial habitat for the emperor penguins as a breeding and nesting site, just like the poor what was the other creatures? The poor walruses, just the same as that. Yeah. In Antarctica, shifting weather patterns have resulted in a decline of ice in some areas and an increase of ice in other areas, both of which adversely affect the penguin colonies. If there is too much ice between their nesting site and the sea, the adult penguins have to travel further to hunt and bring back food for their chicks. If there's not enough ice, the penguins risk losing their nesting sites as well as a reduction in the abundance of krill, a critical food source for the species.
And then last but not least is the belugas.
They're so pretty.
It's The imminent collapse of the food chain as a result of disappearing sea ice threatens beluga whales as well. As Arctic waters become increasingly navigable, the fisheries and oil and gas prospectors will flock to the region. This means an exponential rise in shipping traffic. This causes a problem for belugas and all Arctic whales, as the ship's sonar interferes with their echolation. Echolocation techniques. The melting sea ice also means that, you know what, I'm going to cry. Means that the belugas can't use camouflage. I feel bad with the sonar. That's one of my big things. They can't use camouflage as a defense mechanism against predation.
Predation.
I know. I'm I know. I'm visualizing what's going on out there.
It's so sad.
Yeah, it is. We're ending like on a sad note, but
I know.
perhaps most seriously for the belugas, rising Arctic sea temperatures have caused the proliferation of one such predator, the killer whale. Unpredictable weather patterns associated with climate change often cause pack ice to rapidly shift and refreeze as well, trapping the belugas underneath. Oh, Lord. All right. You know what? I'm not doing it. We're done.
It's
We're
too
done.
sad.
We're done. We all know what's going on. We all know that if things don't change, which the only change we see right now is because we have a virus that's keeping humans at home. And I know one thing we had talked about, Jen and I, she sent me the article about the animals. There have been several, right, about the animals coming out where the humans are not out anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Kevin covered that the other day on his show, and it's I guess that's a positive, because people were saying, Jen, on I think it was Twitter, somewhere I saw people were saying, well, look at Chernobyl. It might be it was Fiesta Cranberry. It might be a glowing paradise, but it's a paradise nonetheless because there's no people there, and the animals came back.
Mm-hmm. So. It's always interesting how quick these areas recover once humans kind of fall back, right? Just like at Chernobyl.
Absolutely. So I'm just I'm seeing what everybody's talking about, but we've gone over an hour. So I think we're going to just say thank you to everybody that came. And we hope that you listened and learned from what we brought to you. It's not political, right? I mean, it's political, but it's not political, and it's not about coronavirus, and it's not about Joe Biden or Trump or Morrison or Bolsonaro. I mean, we could do a lot of things, but you know what? We wanted to bring you a nice, newsy bit of stuff on the Arctic. Jen?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what happens in the Arctic doesn't stay in the Arctic, as we know. It's fallen apart before our eyes, so we might as well just take a look. I think everybody on this show is very interested in the Arctic, and I think it's one of the most important topics that we could talk about, period.
And we can never get sick of talking about the Arctic and the Antarctic. The Antarctic is where the penguins are. The king penguins. What are they called? The king penguins, maybe. Emperor. I'm saying king penguins. The emperor penguins, and they're so beautiful. And it would be nice to be able to think about even ever getting anywhere like that. Basil Peterson, at that, I'm going to end us. He says, namaste, brothers and sisters. Nice break from the mundane. Absolutely. And we aim to please, educate, and enjoy ourselves at the same time. And that's why you'll come to our birthday party next Friday night. Happy birthday yesterday, Jennifer. Happy birthday me Wednesday. And what do you say? Peace out, guys. I will put up the video separately. You can see it because you'll like it. Jean, you'll like it. Good night, guys.
Night, night.